Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to react to a segment of The View, which Dylan Mulvaney was a part of, and it highlights the fact that a lot of people weigh into the discussion about men and women's sports, trans women competing in competitions that are for females, that are strictly for females. A lot of people weigh into that debate with no clue what they're talking about, forgetting that sports has categories. Suddenly, they're struck with amnesia and they don't know how sports is structured. These are the people who will say it with their chest that they support men and women's sports, that it's bigotry to not be for it. And they can't separate their politics from simply what is right and what is wrong, from fact and truth, from biology. They're incapable of doing that and they will defend the indefensible. Same old nonsense that we see all the time. So Dylan has a new book. This is where it all began, by the way, starting videos. It was a Bud Light, the whole Bud Light situation that I started making commentary on. And, this is where it all began. So we're back. We're back to discussing Dylan Mulvaney. So Dylan has a book out at the moment that's being promoted.
Mulvaney says she never wanted to be an activist, but has found herself navigating a society that's not always supportive of trans rights.
On his first day in office, President Trump signed the order which recognized two sexes, male and female. When you heard that pronouncement, what did you think?
It didn't change any way that I think about myself, because I'm a woman no matter what my passport says. We are not hurting anyone. We're less than 1% of the population. And the way that they speak about us so often is as if we're like taking over cities like Godzilla. We're just being our authentic selves.
The Trump administration has also tried to ban gender-affirming care for people under the age of 19. A federal court has blocked that for now.
And what do you say to those who do question gender-affirming care, believing that it could be irreversible and lead to problems later in life, even cause regrets?
I don't have the lived experience of a trans child that was able to seek out that care, but I ultimately do believe that parents know their child better than a government does. We should let those families figure out what is best for them.
Jill was my prop master in the Book of Mormon, and I just started crying because I was so happy to see her.
Oh my God, it's day 1096 of being a girl. It's year 3, and that's me on a billboard in Times Square. Ah! I've got 3 Bs, a book, a bath bomb, and a billboard. Oh, wow. Now I think we should hand out some paper doll books to some of these people out in Times Square. Let's go.
So Dylan was on The View promoting a new book, and the book is supposed to be about however many days Dylan claims to have been a girl.
Last week, California Governor Gavin Newsom said that he thinks that trans athletes competing in girls' and women's sports was deeply unfair. Now, I want to hear what you think, because I'll tell you what I think, too.
Yeah. The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old, and I was on a soccer team, but I assigned myself as the nurse. So I sat with the Band-Aids. And so, in the words of Wicked, I am not that girl.
You are absolutely not that girl, because you're not a girl. And yeah, of course, people who know nothing about sports, who've never played sports, who've never been in a situation where they've worked very hard to be successful in sports, they're the ones who love to weigh into this topic.
But a dear friend of mine, Skylar, he is a trans athlete. His handle's Pink Manore. That's someone who I really look to for guidance. And I think that is what's tricky, is like now stepping in this identity. I'm still like a baby trans. You know, I've only 3 years in. Tomorrow's my anniversary.
Your friend went your friend went from female to male and is competing with other males.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Her friend.
Her friend. It went from female to male and is competing with other males.
So Gavin doesn't have a problem with that.
Guess what? There's nothing stopping any woman from competing in a men's category. Women can compete in men's categories if they want to. There's not even really such a thing as men's categories. At least they weren't created for the inclusion of men.
But when people start coming to arguments about biological males competing in female sports, and by the way, notice the conversation only happens in one direction, and there's a specific reason for that. Nobody is concerned about men's sports or boys' sports. And that is because we're biologically different. And I just think that this is the reason why this conversation has raged on for so long. It's these type of ridiculous, frankly, demands that affect women, affect half of the population, particularly those who play sports. And that's where people just get lost. And I think that's where a lot of the backlash or resentment actually is stemming from. Here, the solution for this is very simple, and we've had the solution, as far as I know, for about a century. And this is simply to have an open sports league and a female-only sports league. A lot of what people call men's sports is not even explicitly men's sports. Anyone is allowed to participate, but because of the biological and physiological advantages men have, if you take the fastest, the strongest people in the world, the best endurance, they're all going to end up being men. That's how it's going to stack up, which is why if you want females to be able to participate in sports, you need to have a separate league because they can't compete in an open competition against men.
When the Olympics first began, it was only men. And it was the women's category that was created for our inclusion, because men and women are built differently. So they had to create another category for women so that women could be included, just like they had to create the Paralympics so that people with disabilities could be included and be able to compete in sports. And the whole point of sticking to your categories is that sports remains fair and safe. If a woman was able to compete at the same level as a man, I don't think men would really care. The fact is, we don't see women competing in men's categories because men and women are built differently. And women just won't qualify to compete in the men's category for the most part. And even when you're talking about trans men competing in the men's categories, more than likely they're on testosterone and should be disqualified from competing against other women.
Well, I think part of the problem that the trans community is facing, and it's the same problem that women face, is if you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works. So when you come in and you say, oh, you know, these are men, you know, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue.
So she claims it's because people don't know anything about female bodies, and then she proceeds to basically show herself to be somebody who doesn't know anything about female bodies. Because what you should know is that women's testosterone is way lower, nowhere near that of men. Women's bone density, muscle mass, a lot lower than male athletes. It doesn't matter how big or strong a female athlete is, that doesn't make her a man, and that doesn't mean that she's going to be on the same level physically. Take a look around. That's why we have categories in sports. The female athletes she's talking about compete against other females. They don't compete in the men's category, and she knows it. And for some reason, the onus is on the woman to be the strongest, the fastest, the biggest, so that she can have a chance at competing against men. But the trans athlete, they can be the most mediocre athlete that you'll ever come across. They can be somebody who's ranked 100 and something when competing against other males. But for some reason, they come over to the women's category, and they're certainly not the strongest, the fastest, the biggest when it comes to other males. But when they compete against women, they excel. Suddenly they're number one. So they can be mediocre or less than mediocre and get all the glory in the women's category. But the woman has to be the strongest, the fastest, the biggest to even be in with a chance. How is that fair? Why can't a mediocre female athlete compete against a male athlete comfortably? Why is the standard so much higher for the women, for the female athletes in their own category? See how that works? They will celebrate a mediocre male athlete who didn't achieve anything while competing in the correct category. But they will tell the female that she has to be the best of the best, or it's her fault that she didn't win. It's her fault that she didn't qualify. Or if she loses, she's a sore loser. And that she should celebrate a male athlete taking her spot. She should celebrate a male athlete winning a championship in place of a female. And here she gets all religious, saying that God doesn't make any mistakes, when the whole premise of the trans movement is based on being in the wrong body, is pushing the idea, the lie, that God makes mistakes. The whole premise of the movement is based on that. If God didn't make any mistakes, then you have to accept that you were not born in the wrong body. And surely that would mean that you have to accept yourself for who you are. They love to bring in religion when it suits them, yet they have no respect for at least what the Bible actually says.
Athletes, they know what they're doing. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue. The same for me as when people say, oh, you know, I don't know how I feel about you. You do. God doesn't make mistakes.
No.
And the challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans. That's what God is looking to see, how you treat people.
Yeah.
That's what is happening. So I was just curious as to what I liked your answer.
Thank you.
I liked your answer.
Ask yourself how you treat women, how you treat children, pushing this ideology onto impressionable children, pushing them into a situation that they may turn around and regret later when they're old enough to remotely grasp what has been done to them. How do you treat women? How do you treat children? Because everything they're defending, everything they're pushing is disenfranchising women, is hurting women, is traumatizing women, and children too. And bear in mind, Dylan Mulvaney hasn't had bottom surgery. So Dylan can take all the time in the world before having such surgery, permanently mutilating everything. Dylan can take all the time in the world. But then Dylan is advocating for children to be pushed into these surgeries, to be given procedures that they cannot consent to. And nobody who claims to be, conservative should be on that panel promoting this nonsense, promoting the very things that hurt women and children. It is hurting people. And for 1% of the population, like I always say, it's absolutely absurd that everything was turned upside down to accommodate these ideologies. An ideology that is all about the erasure of women. Because when you say a man can be a woman, that's exactly what you're doing. You're all part of the erasure of women. And it's a movement that hurts children. Ask the detransitioners, young detransitioners who are still trying to grasp what was done to their bodies. That's why there's various lawsuits going on at the moment. I was sitting down with Uta recently, Uta Hagen, and she had this to say about Mulvaney.
He's really regressed, in maturity. If you ask me, he sounds like a 13-year-old. He is going into and embracing this idea, if you ask me, that he is now in a second adolescence.
Yeah.
And
girlhood.
I feel that there's a dynamic here that has to do with the environment. We grow new brain cells every day. How we use and put these new brain cells into use is what our thought patterns will be and what our habits will be. And for me, that's hopeful because it means that you can, take a path away from dysfunctional stuff if you have the will to do it, and then it will become a healthy habit or something like that. But with all this affirmation stuff, and I feel that, Nettie, my ex, I think Nettie has kind of come down in how intelligent he seemed. He seemed really intelligent. He has 3 Ivy League graduate degrees. When I looked up appearances he had made and put out online, I was surprised. I was sort of like, "Whoa, what happened to you?" And now it's because no one challenges you. No one challenges a Dylan Mulvaney or a Jeffrey Marsh or, all of those characters, a Caitlyn Jenner, Blair White, whatever. No one challenges them about anything because we have to just,
be tolerant.
Recognize that they come from the most oppressed group that, and to me, this whole thing, the most oppressed and the most, misunderstood or whatever you want to call it, that is in a way admitting that they don't pass.
Yeah.
Because, and that the trope that would be said to me, which has been said to me going back 30 years, which is that you pass people like this on the street every day and you don't know. And it's like, I will say, I will challenge you on that. I do know. Don't tell me I don't know.
This person is an actor. This person has been trying to chase fame for the longest time, had some success on Broadway in the Book of Mormon. The pandemic ruined all of that. But then we have this person discovering how to get more clicks and views on social media. And that's how we came to the days of girlhood. And Dylan hasn't looked back since. And there's been a lot of copycats as well, wanting to mirror Dylan's success. And if you ask me, that's what it all comes down to. Earning a whole lot of money, gaining a whole lot of fame, while promoting the erasure of women, while cosplaying and mocking women and womanhood. And let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.